podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
AEW officially has a new TV contract, and after Bad Blood this weekend, WWE, TikTok is the countdown on Netflix.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Welcome to the program. This is King of Podcasts here with you, another Wrestling is Real podcast, and a lot of things going on this week. AEW now has a brand new TV deal. They will continue with Warner Bros. Discovery, a few new extra things being added to the mix. So 3 years, going with a fourth-year option, $170 million per year. We'll go through the details in just a moment. Then we have to do a little preview of WWE's Bad Blood coming up this weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, and what's coming up with that and how they build up to it, which, not necessarily happy about it. But what's more important is that after Bad Blood, it's the 90-day countdown to Netflix. And we're going to be on top of that. It's going to be white on rice. Yeah, we're going to be on top of that here on this program, because if WWE is giving us what they're giving us at Bad Blood, I'm going to tell you, we know that they're going to have to go into their arsenal and basically do what Vince McMahon has done in the past. Triple H is going to have to do that. They're going to have to go out of desperation, and they're going to have to rely on part-time talent that are definitely more over than the stars they have for about 90% of the part. And then again, who's going to be left behind in the mix once Netflix is here? Some of the stars that you're seeing right now. Do you think we're going to see Lyra Valkyria and Pure Fusion Collective? Or are we going to go ahead and watch Grayson Waller and Austin Theory? Are we going to go ahead and see LA Knight? Are we going to go ahead and see, take a pick, Damage Control, or Bailey, or Naomi, or all these others that are going to be out there? Like, really, who's going to be left? Because I think that's something that's got to be understood. So, I'm just telling you, get ready, because Netflix is going to have to see some significant changes. Number one, because the audience should expect more from the product. And I'm not talking about the minority that I specifically talked about. The fandom, a loyal fandom, but it's a very small but very vocal minority. They have the ear of Triple H. They have the ear of Shawn Michaels. We also saw that CW debuted NXT. All hands on deck. Sure, you had other stars out there, but you didn't know who was out there if you're watching for the first time. I know that you can go ahead and say, well, people know what the brand is, that they already should have an assumption of the brand, what it is. So you know what they're going to be doing anyway. Doesn't matter about the individual stars, but that's also the mindset that it's the brand that people are watching, and that you're watching the brand of the house show every week. It doesn't matter about the stars. They're just acting players. There's no hierarchy of who's higher or who's lower. And for the fact that they also do the parody booking like they do now, it kind of shows it. Because sure, you have stars that are there at the top with belts, but, they could easily be replaced. Except for maybe 2 or 3. Because it is something important if you're going to go ahead and take the belt off of Cody Rhodes. If you're going to take the belt off of Gunther. I think those are important. But everything else, the fact that they can go ahead and make changes to who could be heel, who could be face. Some of the stars, if it makes much of an impact, again, it's the small, vocal minority that listen to shows like this, fan podcasts, your wrestling media that also placates to them because they make money off of them. Sure, if you can get such a rabid fan base like that, and you're doing this because you're basically treating them like kids in a candy store, spoiling them with all these different matches they've all asked for, because the fantasy booking that they have, Triple H is trying to make it come true. And because of that, okay, so you see the Braun Strowman match, the last monster standing. Oh, look, we got the ring collapsing. We got all these big burly guys huffing and puffing, trying to move around. And then you get Seth Rollins coming back, set up a feud with Bronson Reed, of all people. Hey, Bronson Reed, they're going to put a rocket on his back. They're going to keep pushing him. Okay. That's what they want to do. Sami Zayn, you want to find a way to go ahead and get him a match with Gunther? Oh, so Gunther basically talked himself into the match. Gunther talked himself because his dad tells him, oh, look at you. And the WrestleMania thing, which, Gunther, you promoted yourself. You won King of the Ring. You get the World Heavyweight title. And you're getting manipulated by the babyface. I don't want to go ahead and get into logic here. I have to go and continue to over and over try to explain how things are going on here and how they don't make sense. See, that's the part of the minority of my fellow podcast wrestling brethren. I'm not in the lane like everybody else. And I don't want to. Because I honestly and sincerely, I cringe at some of the content I watch from WWE on a regular basis right now. And I don't know, maybe the younger audience that they're trying to reach out to, but you're not able to expand an audience with this. And again, this is a bigger problem for wrestling in general. You got to find some things that are going to have some mainstream crossover appeal. But who do you have right now that's really doing that? I don't see it. Of the stars that Triple H just wanted to go ahead and push, it's not a favoritism. Or, this person's dating this person, whatever there is. It's more just trying to make everybody go along to get along. Make a happy morale in the locker room. And sure, there are, in sports analogies, you can have a player's coach. And sometimes they do really well because everything works out. But it's not sustainable. But this is also the part where the younger portion of the fandom out here, what their issue is that they are into like participation trophies and everybody can get along together in kumbaya. And that's not the way it should be. But that's why it makes it boring. That's why it doesn't make it interesting, because we're watching programming that I want something more to this. We just can't have disposable wrestling. There is nothing in my mind that makes me feel like I am compelled to watch this show every week. Cliffhangers? None. Very little. But it's as if, you're watching a soap opera. There were soap operas back in the day where, if you were watching very intently, there are a couple things you might take away from it that will keep you watching. But, those kind of things don't happen anymore. And the thing is, too, is that if we're not going to expect anything about what the live broadcast is going to be every week on any of these shows, because of the fact that, again, we're going to get to 8 hours of programming pretty soon in 2025. That's what it looks like the plan will be, because then Raw, SmackDown will be 3 hours, NXT on CW, 2 hours. And then what happens after that? Like, that's just filler. And no one's going to have time for that. So let's get to the more logical sense. How are people going to be watching this? They're going to find clips. Social media. If you are getting people that are going to watch, maybe somebody that is an influencer, or they're a Twitch streamer, or they watch on YouTube or wherever they're watching, maybe they'll get you to do a watch along. But how many people are they really getting for that too? And pay attention to that as well. It's fine. So you get those fans that will do these broadcasts just to get people to kind of be interested, but it's such a small little portion. But the thing is that you have this contract right here. And now you're saying to yourself, what are you going to do right now once you get to Netflix that's going to give value to even just the fandom that you have? Because what you're doing right now, WWE, is you are charging more for less dates next year. You're going to be charging more, by the way, on Netflix, because they're going to have premium access more than they pay for pay-per-views. Premium live events. They're going to be paying more. Almost 3 times more. What? Maybe the same price as Peacock? Maybe. But that's the other part. You can't do password sharing. You can't do other things like that. Sure, you're going to be able to go and access it in other places, but like, you could do the USA just the same as that. You could let Netflix hide behind the fact that they can just go ahead and give whatever numbers that they want, which that's going to be very beneficial to them. By the way, keep that in mind. We will not get raw ratings anymore once they move to Netflix. Nielsen will not count towards them. Because even in the latest television strike, okay, the writers, the actors strike that I've talked about on my broadcasters podcast. You don't know about this, okay, but you remember there was a writers and actors strike last year. And one of the things they wanted to determine about programming so that the actors and the writers were getting fairly compensated, they wanted to also be given bonuses for shows that perform well. Whatever it was, documentaries, scripted series, all that. But then what happens is Netflix caved in because they don't want to give out numbers. They're not working with Nielsen or anybody else in ratings to give you the ratings that we normally get. So they can keep that hidden for as long as they want. And as for Netflix, they're going to be stuck on the 5-year deal. They talk about a 5-year extension possibly down the line if they perform well. But again, 5 years, Netflix, that's the only audience that WWE is going to matter about. The Netflix brass. Because Netflix needs to see a return on investment. And this is not where Netflix is going to come in like USA Network or Fox and help them on advertising. Okay, because the advertising part, that's going to have to be on WWE's part. On WWE's part, right? I mean, they have to go ahead and help their broadcast partner get something back for spending $250 million every year. Plus what they're going to be spending on promotion and marketing. For someone to go ahead and be willing to go and spend $13 to $23 a month. Because I'm under the impression that there will be a lot of people that will find their way to watch this show and aren't even going to watch live. Is that live component going to be anything anymore? Because Netflix, once they go there, Netflix isn't going to matter. Netflix isn't going to matter because you're going to have on demand. So people could just watch whenever they want. And is there anything on demand worthy of that? See, the fandom that's out here, they're going to watch it live because they want to be part of that whole thing because there's things that they're going to be caring about that happens so they can talk about it with others. So it's the camaraderie of also talking with other people about it online or on social media, wherever they want. But that's such a small portion of the audience. It's not the rest of the audience. I mean, when they talk about the millions of social media followers they've had around for a long time, by the way, some of them probably very stagnant because they might not watch all this content that much. Okay. Even I subscribe to all the content that's out there in social media. And even I don't go out and looking for all this. I'm not watch all this all together. I will go find clips I'm going to watch afterwards. But again, it's such important stuff that it's like, if I'm watching it, that's because probably another million people or so watched it as well. Or a couple million across multiple channels. And will that be something that the WWE is going to be able to do as well? Because Netflix doesn't have a social footprint. They don't need to. So WWE is now going to be relying upon themselves for advertising, relying upon themselves for marketing on social media. And the advertising promotion that Netflix wants to do traditionally, that's on them. But for Netflix to do what they're going to do and spending money on this, what do they spend on normally on other things? Like, okay, maybe a new series that they built on their own originally. Or that they have a new movie that comes out. But I'll tell you, they don't put that much out hitting you over the head about new broadcasting and what they're doing. I don't see that much. Do you? Because I don't. And I look for it because it would be nice to go and see if they're actually going to get anything out of that. I don't know, but, you know. But either which way, now they have a new place for their content with NXT, CW, and a 44% increase for their audience. So NXT now joining the fall lineup of CW, which CW now, it's the first year of them putting out new content, new programming. So that's good. The idea is that they're trying to go and get people to go and catch it and watch the show. Okay. 895,000 viewers. 895,000 viewers, up 44% from last week's episode. The peak audience was between 8:15 and 8:30 p.m. Eastern at 965,000 viewers. All right, so what's going to happen with that is expect probably a good third of that audience to go away. Because there was a lot of things they added on the show. They packed it up. They packed it with your women's world title and a world title match of NXT. You add extra stars in there with CM Punk and The Miz. And you're reliant upon the fact that you're going to have other people come out here to get people to be interested in the product. You're going to have to bring out main roster stars regularly. Look, for the tag team titles, women's tag team titles, you brought out Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair. So you're going to have to go ahead and already give the idea that NXT is going to have to go ahead and rely on main roster talent anyway. It's not going to be able to sustain on its own, especially to be able to go ahead and fill out seats on a regular basis. And then what is it going to look like once they are not working from there and they're back in the Performance Center? Of course, the Performance Center is going to be redone. They're reimagining it now for the CW show. So what are they going to do next? And we'll find out what that's going to be about anyway. But the thing is that CW is going to have to expect that they're not going to be able to reach that audience regularly. They could very well go back to the 600,000 viewers that would watch on USA. And if they get that, listen, if they get a little bit more than that, if they're able to pull 700,000 viewers regular, okay, then I'll say that they've made a good move. And that might help. Because that'll be probably more than double the audience that CW normally gets for live sports. Because there's not anything else they have in their lineup that's really pulling in anything at all. And WWE's brand, especially on network TV, still means something. But, you know, they have this here. And for CW, it didn't spend a boatload of money to get this show over here. You get under $100 million a year. For them, it's not like this company has, you know, boatloads of money to go and work off of, but they have put investment and time in their programming. They want to have a focus more on live and more event programming for themselves, which is where wrestling works out for them. So, can't really take much out of this first week. Give me a couple of weeks, and let's see what happens during their November sweeps, because that's the other part too. November sweeps are going to be important. That's in 4 weeks from now. So right around Halloween up until Thanksgiving week. And they need to be able to go ahead and perform at least 600, 700,000 viewers regularly. So what they might do, as a matter of fact, is they might go ahead and just have to continue to have main roster talent embedded in the NXT until November sweeps ends. That's what they're going to have to do. But so far, it's a fresh new changeover. I don't think they really give us anything. You know, for anybody that was going to be new viewers, you didn't get anything. Let's be clear about that. You're not gaining new viewers by what you did. A couple of onlookers, sure. But are you getting your base loyal fandom that are willing to go ahead and just find the show wherever it is and they're going to follow it because they're NXT fans? Yes. About 600,000. Pretty obvious. As we know, when the NXT has drawn more than 600,000 or maybe 700,000, it's either for a pay-per-view type event where you just got a whole lot of big matches going on, or you have main roster talent embedded. And we know that. And we know they did that when they had it before when they went up against Dynamite. And speaking of Dynamite, we'll get back to WWE and we'll get back to Bad Blood in a little bit. But let's go ahead and roll into the fact of AEW, because that's the big story right now. And that just happened today. So to the industry rags where I normally go to for my Broadcasters podcast, if you haven't caught that, please go ahead and take a listen for yourself. I put it out Friday mornings right here, kingofpodcasts.com, and of course, wherever you find podcasts. And of course, you might see clips if you follow me on social media, whether it's X, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, and I think the other one. Oh, TikTok, of Where's TikTok? So Warner Brothers Discovery and All Elite Wrestling now have a new 3-year deal with a 4th-year option, and some new things have been added onto it. This is after the 5-year anniversary of Dynamite happens tonight, or actually would have been October 1st. But yes, 5th anniversary happens here for AEW. We'll talk about AEW in just a second in terms of assessing them, but let's talk about the deal itself. According to Deadline, they talk about that 5 years ago, prior to its merger with Discovery, Warner Bros. Teamed with AEW to launch the pro wrestling circuit. While still overshadowed by the WWE, AEW has had a solid run and proved to be a year-round ratings draw. And it is. There's not much embellishment to that. I think it's pretty straightforward. So, the Warner Brothers networks and platforms will remain the exclusive home for AEW Dynamite, Wednesdays on TBS, AEW Collision, Saturdays on TNT, and enhanced distribution rights across social platforms, as well as what the companies will call building opportunities for more AEW programming across linear and digital down the line. And then what will happen in January, at the same time that Raw is going to be going to Netflix, AEW Dynamite, or programming rather, will be available on Max. So streaming on Max, that's going to be for, they said AEW programming live. So that's got to mean Dynamite, Collision, and pay-per-views. And the word is the pay-per-views will be available at an additional discounted rate. So they're going to still charge a premium for it, but it won't be as much as it was before. And I can understand that part of doing that. AEW Live pay-per-view events will be distributed via Max at a discounted price per event, and with all marketing promotion of those happening exclusively on Max. And again, later in 2025, details will include pricing to be revealed in the coming months. Now, more interesting information, details we learned about this from Sports Business Journal, because basically Variety, Deadline, major industry rags did talk about all this in here, but there wasn't anything else they added in here. They just basically took what the press release said, but more from Sports Business Journal. They took more information they've learned about it. There were no details shared about the deal publicly, but sources, according to Sports Business Journal, said that it's a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th year. The deal is estimated to be valued at $170 million annually, including the rights fee and other elements. Warner Brothers Discovery will keep their equity stake in AEW, but the size of it has not been disclosed. Kathleen Finch, Warner Brothers Discovery chair and CEO of US Network, says that they recently, because of the fact they lost the NBA, which is the reason why the deal took so long for it to be done, because I talked about this in previous programs, Warner Brothers Discovery was trying to go ahead and continue their partnership with the NBA, and it was for another long-term deal, but someone else outbid them, even though they tried to match the same deal with Amazon for the NBA package. And originally it was NBC that was taking away the package that Warner Brothers Discovery had, and then they tried to go and opt for another deal that Amazon had, but they've been left out altogether. And Kathleen Finch says that we did not want to let our wonderful partnership with Tony and the entire group of AEW to go anywhere else. What's exciting about the deal, it is the same deal we had, but it's because what we're able to do now is expand the franchise to a potentially brand new audience on Max. It's a younger, engaged audience that we think can really tap into this new fandom in new ways. People that negotiated the deal, activist founding partner Bernie Cahill helped negotiate the deal among many others. So like the Nick Khan side of AEW was able to make this deal. Then you had CEO David Zaslav for Warner Bros. Discovery and leadership team that also set the agreement. Kathleen Finch was also part of the negotiations, and the U.S. Networks Group. And also Jason Sarlanis, who's president of TNT, TBS, TruTV, ID, and HLN, linear and streaming. And Sam Linsky, who's associate general and manager and senior vice president of programming operations for TNT, TBS, and TruTV. So that's everything we know. And at some point, AEW pay-per-views will be off of Bleacher Report and they'll move to Max. That's a big deal for them. And right now, Max is a very strong streaming service. And, in the same way, for folks that want to go ahead and order Max, it's a better deal because everything's all in one. Warner Bros. Discovery actually has this all in one set, and now you get live Dynamite, Collision, and the pay-per-views. Of course, the pay-per-views are going to be at an additional cost, but still, you get that. Plus, there's a lot of sports programming. There's a lot of variety of options you get available on Max. So, again, there are going to be quite a few people that will have Max as well, but it's also not as priced as Netflix. So there could be a big difference in that. For you that wants to be a fan, you got to think about how much you're going to be spending per month. And for the fact is that, okay, you're going to be spending roughly $25 a month if you want to get feasibly go and watch. And then also you're going to have cable to be able to watch WWE programming in general. And you got to also have network TV. You got to be able to go and have access to go and get to watching it either on cable or you're going to watch it on the rabbit ears. And you have to also go a lot of places to go find your content. AEW, one-stop shop. It's all the networks of Warner Bros. Discovery and Max, but basically you could watch it on Max and just stream it there. It's like you don't have to go anywhere else for it. It's all right there for you. That's pretty good. As far as we look like, what we're noticing right now is that there was no extra news about a potential new program that's going to be shopped around outside of AEW. Nothing was explained about what Ring of Honor's possible TV deal, if there's going to be one at all. We don't know anything about that yet. But there's been the trademark for the show Shockwave that we've already heard rumblings that might go to Fox Sports 1 or Fox itself. But we don't know anything about that yet. But either which way, AEW right now, I want to congratulate Tony Khan and the team for the fact that all those wrestlers and all those people there survived 5 years. It's important to note that if the broadcast partners felt that they could go ahead and extend and they didn't feel like they were being slighted by what happened, great for them. That's the most important part. It's just like the broadcast partners for WWE, but the problem is that the Fox deal is concerning because of the fact that they were not able to go ahead and keep up on the advertising efforts to help make enough money back for Fox to go and deal with it. Did it deliver on ratings? Yeah, more or less. It was pretty consistent ratings that they had, over 2 million viewers, almost 2.5 million viewers at some points. But Fox had to spend a lot of money on it. And now they're going to just replace it with live sports, and they're going to probably be able to sustain that same audience. A different audience coming in, but they'll get a lot more advertising in that switch, in that transition. So they're fine with that. But WWE had a chance right here. But either which way, they're not going to worry about that either because they're going to get network again for their programming because they're going to get Saturday night's main event, which is at least one that we know of in December on NBC. But again, we know that there are no pay-per-views in December. We also know that Royal Rumble coming up in Indianapolis, I think it is, the Lucas Oil Stadium, is not until February 1st. And so I think, December 16th, the Saturday night's main event? Like after Survivor Series, it's the only thing that will even resemble a pay-per-view will be this show on NBC that Saturday night. And so after that, they can make something important out of that, and that'll work well for them. They'll be able to do something pretty well and interesting for that. They'll have something to go and build off of. They have to go and give something good to NBC that will replace the audience that Saturday Night Live gets. Which, if I'm right, I think Saturday Night Live still pulls a pretty good amount of audience. I know that the 40th season they just started up did really well for them as well. So or the 50th season, excuse me. So either which way for them, they're kind of set in their own ways and they're kind of working off things. Now, they've had to make changes. When Fox didn't decide to go ahead and continue their deal, it's concerning. But it's nothing new for this company because they've also had to go through other places to go other places. Most important for WWE is they need to have streaming exposure on their programming. They want to be able to make it easier for the people to go and stream it as opposed to watching on cable. So USA, you can find, they have still the deal. I think the Hulu show's gone. So watching it there, streaming it on demand is gone. I don't think you can watch it live other than just USA Network's website. I don't think it's on Peacock. You get the pay-per-views on Peacock. And CW is its own standalone place to go and stream, but at least it's free. and that's what you got left. And then you got Netflix. Then you got to pay for a premium. But it doesn't matter what WWE did because, it's just the mindset that goes together. For Nick Khan, for WWE, they don't care about how much money they care about the money they're making. The corporate clutches, the claws on this company right now, TKO is trying to recoup their investment. Again, $9 billion in stock to go ahead and take over this and put it on their stock ticker and combine TKO Group Holdings to go with UFC. And UFC is a cash grab. And they have their ways of getting all their content out there through ESPN. They're partner there, and they're set with it. Because you have to go and pay, if you want to go and stream UFC on ESPN, or watch it through cable providers, and then also you want to watch their pay-per-views, you got to pay a premium, a high premium, to watch their pay-per-views every month. So that's the other part you got to think about too. For WWE right now, it's a pure cash grab. We talked about this. Nearly $1 billion a year they're going to make on broadcast rights. And they could basically fumble for the next 5 years and they'll be all right. But we can't afford to have that happen. I mean, all the wrestling companies are realizing that they need to go and do something more about that. TNA, they do have their setup with YouTube, but they're also going to go through a premium to go and watch that there. NWA, MLW, they've worked their ways to go and work through YouTube, but also like NWA now is offering their Power Series. They're, broadcasting 5 weeks of the NWA 76, which I missed, but I'm going to catch it up on X. So they're trying to find their way to go ahead and get their product out to a streaming audience and hopefully be able to monetize it through advertising or whatever else they can. But all the wrestling companies, they're aware they have to be able to be streaming their content. Got to be able to make it so you can get it on the phone, tablet, however. And so television is it's not the most important component. So they got to figure that out. Now we're going to move on to Bad Blood, and we'll talk about that and also the other things that led up to Bad Blood coming up this weekend. We'll do that. And of course, there'll be a post show we'll be doing right here, kingofpodcasts.com. Well, the matter of fact is that my alma mater is not playing football this weekend, so I don't have a game to go travel to, and I'll have the night off, so I'm going to just be watching Bad Blood on Saturday night. So I'll do a post show for that. You can look for it right here, kingofpodcasts.com. Just look for that. And before we get to that, let's go ahead and talk about the fact about AEW and where they are right now, because AEW right now in general is in a pretty good position. They're set up right now, coming into 2025. From the business standpoint, they're getting a significant increase in what they're going to be able to go and get for producing their programming, for taking care of their staff, and turning a profit coming into the 5th year of this company. That's what they're going to be able to go and do. And not to mention the fact they're going to be able to work with Max, who has an equity stake in it. We don't know how big of an equity stake in it. But remember, for Warner Bros. Discovery, there are enough people that are around there. There are probably enough people that were around before of Turner executives that could have, really bashed this company and said something about it. But to the credit, to the detriment, part of it is that AEW is working out the fact that there is a bit of a weakness at Warner Bros. Discovery because they lost the NBA. And that live content is very important to them for the streaming service. And most importantly, that access to go and put their programming on Max is, crucial for AEW to go ahead and continue to thrive. To have it there, it's important. So now I got to ask myself, I already had Max before and I lost it because of the setup that I had with my cable provider. So I might go ahead and just start looking into the idea of getting it back. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to figure out what to do in terms of getting Max and putting it on there soon enough. We'll figure out what it's going to be. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm considering it. Either which way. AEW in general. As we know, they pulled over 1 million viewers for Dynamite, and they were able to go ahead and pull that off a number of times in that first year. And again, against competition, it helped them a lot. Without competition, not so much. And we can look over year after year of what they've done. with Collision, they were able to pull 800,000 viewers. And now that audience fluctuates a lot because you're going up against Saturday night programming, which is live sports all over the place. And that's going to be tough for them going forward to try to go and continue to get people to go ahead and follow along with what they're doing. It's difficult. They're up against college football regularly. They're up against NBA basketball. They're up against UFL football. They're up against sports in general that are going to be happening on Saturday night because that's what the network channels have to do or cable has to go and do to go ahead and continue to keep people moving and engaged. They have to have this live content. But this time right now during football season, very tough for them. And also I think where it is that you can see the difference where Tony Khan is controlling what he's doing in terms of the book. And the fact that people were kind of complaining about what he's doing, yeah, I get it. Because he's not doing what Triple H is doing. I think he's trying to give what people want, but also the part where it's Tony Khan's way of doing it and where he might book things that people are going to have an opinion about. So agree to disagree. But one of the things is that AEW and WWE, both in general, they need to do something more to create more mainstream crossover appeal. Believe it or not, I mean, there is one person right now that is getting that. MJF. He was out for a while. Even though he had the injury, he was also away filming the Iron Claw last year. This year, he's about to go and film Happy Gilmore 2. He's going to be Happy Gilmore's son. That's significant. Listen, I don't know how well that movie's going to do, but either which way, MJF has got Hollywood crossover appeal. And who do you have right now that Triple H has created that has that right now? It's not The Rock. It's not John Cena. It's not Batista. None of those. And so right now, we're just waiting to go and find out what they're going to do because that whole idea of having stars that have crossover appeal to transition and they get transcend into other entertainment platforms, not happening. Because anybody right now transcending at all on social media? No. I don't think on either side. But that's part of the thing that he's going to change as well. Is that there's got to be a gateway for new viewers to come in and watch. Because the heyday that we all remember in the Attitude Era and the NWO and remember the Monday Night Wars is because competition had stars of crossover appeal. Or they did things to create crossover appeal. NWO, you're bringing NBA stars, NFL stars like Kevin Green, NBA stars like Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman. Okay, that made a big deal. Going on the Tonight Show, things like that. There's something more that's got to happen to that. And it's like, on the WWE side, you got Roman Reigns currently. But Hollywood could be calling him again. Eventually. And you can't help but think that Roman Reigns at some point, him working with Cody right here, I don't see what plans they have for him right now. And then if you're going to have the match with The Rock at WrestleMania in Vegas, what do you else have for him after that? What's left for Roman Reigns to do? You think he's just going to go and just stick around and just do the Bloodline storyline going forward? Without any other stars going to work off of? Right now, the Usos can't come back together where they are set up. You go ahead and build a brand new crop, and unless you're going to find a way that Solo Sikoa gets back in line, and then you got Jacob Fatu, and you get rid of the Tongans, personally. You don't need them. But I don't know what you do right now. And the way they're trying to sustain the Bloodline and the way they're trying to sustain the Judgment Day have both been bad. And as we said, we're in a house show loop because these storylines that we have continue. They continue without any signs of changing. They're going to have to change before they get to WrestleMania. Are we going to see the same storylines where CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are going to continue to go after each other going forward? Sami Zayn and Gunther keep getting paired together? Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns getting paired together again? because that's what's going on right now. Keep Kevin Owens around in the mix for that, along with Randy Orton in the Cody Roman saga, and you just leave him there. Leave LA Knight working with the same folks when it comes to LWO or the Santos Escobar, or I don't know, Andrade, but I mean, like, what else? I think about some of the stars that have come back over from AEW or other places and what they've done. By the way, was there anything really been done with TNA and NXT that was part of the CW thing? I don't know. Is that over? I mean, we didn't see Rosemary out with Wendy Chu. Neither with Joe Henry involved. Unless I missed something when I was watching, but I didn't see anything there. But that's where I'm looking at. I'm just trying to figure out, okay, I get back to WWE because AEW and WWE had the same problem. And also other wrestling companies in the same way. They all have to get outside of this bubble of booking and find, you're going to want to keep wrestling? Okay, fine. You got to create some stars that have mainstream crossover appeal. You don't like that Vince did that. But at one point, Vince had stars across the board. He had Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. They were all working other deals together. Look at the stuff they were going to do. They were expanding themselves outside of wrestling. The Hollywood crossover appeal was happening for all of them. And as I said, actually kind of an interesting thing, because if you're going to lose anybody in wrestling, they were going to go to another company. WWE was going to lose them to Hollywood. And then what you're doing is you're actually transcending and making it cool. I mean, you're going to get John Cena to come back next year for retirement. And who knows if he's going to just close it out and, we won't really see or hear much of him anyway. The other thing you got to think about, too, is that with the Netflix deal, there's not been anything where Triple H and his team have really been much about nostalgia. They don't really go back too far and talk too much about nostalgia and things that have gone on with what Vince was a part of. Because in a WWE without Vince, it's like there's a bit of no, we're not really going to focus much on that. The documentaries are being produced and other things like that. That's fine. But for all the TV product that we have right now, they're going to focus on the here and now. Which is fine if the product was good, if the stars were really outstanding. And everyone wants to go ahead and pick on the other. The other thing is, I don't want to get into the in-squabbling, the infighting, the tribalism that goes on right now, because that's what consumes all of my fellow podcast wrestling brethren. For everybody that complained about tonight that Ricochet and Will Ospreay had their match, why are you spoiling that match already? Why are you already giving it away? Well, same thing you could be saying about Julia and Roxanne Perez, right? The thing is that I don't care. But both products right now, they're just kind of moving along with things. I mean, with AEW right now, they do have to deal with the Young Bucks playing the EVPs, corrupt, this and that, and the Elite and their control over things when it comes to with Okada. You got the Don Callis family and their issues with Will Ospreay. And now you have Jon Moxley and his WWE bounty or mutiny right now that's attacking at Bryan Danielson and Wheeler Yuta. They're basically just taking care of issues of the broken up Blackpool Combat Club. Okay. We know there's going to be more to it, but we're waiting. We don't know how the turnout's going to be. To the credit of Tony Khan, will say, in the last 5 years, there are a few things I got to give him credit for. Number one, he did not try to make himself a major face on television. Now, he's still the arbiter. He's the matchmaker. His name is still noticed. People will know who it is. And when he does come out for major announcements, they are major announcements. For that, I give him credit. And I think that his booking has been safe. I don't think he's taken a lot of risks. And I think that's what people want to see him do. But risks involve failure. You're going to succeed really well or you're going to fail on it. With Vince McMahon, his booking was risk or reward. because Vince took risks. He would throw stars that were very well over in NXT. He'd throw them into the fire. Crash and burn or succeed. Honestly, I think when he's done quite a bit of that, especially with the NXT stars that we saw coming out of Full Sail and who succeeded and who thrived, it's pretty well done. I still think some of the stars that he did work with in general towards the end, the booking of Bianca Belair, of Gunther, it was great. I thought it was done really well. I mean, Triple H has to be included in that commendation right there for what was being done, but it's still under Vince's oversight that it happened. But of the new stars that we have, I really haven't seen much that makes me feel like we're getting much of anybody really getting over. Of the draft picks? No, not really. I still think that what you showcased on NXT with Trick Williams, Roxanne Perez, Kalani Jordan, Jada Parker, I mean, you have stars that are definitely going to have some appeal that will cross over to the main roster pretty well. So they'll find success, I think. Braun Breaker, it's still a mystery because getting the IC title, getting it pulled away from so quickly, that concerns. The way they were booking Jey Uso, and all of a sudden now he finally gets to the IC title match again, and he finally wins it. It's not at a pay-per-view, it's just at a normal Raw. Nothing in particular happenstance. It's just another show that nobody was watching. I talked last week about the ratings issue that was going on, and one thing that they already had to go and deal with the fact is that Raw last week had one of the worst viewerships that they had. It got a bounce back, 1.516 million viewers this week. And it's their last 3-hour show on USA. Next 3 months, 2-hour show. And I'm guessing that the ratings will sustain at around 1.5, 1.6 because the 2-hour time slot is going to work better for them. I do believe that. So 2 hours, they're going to be set with that. Fine. CW, you got a nice jump in ratings for the debut on CW because CW did put a lot of marketing promotion towards it. But that's going to be a drop-off. You know there's going to be a drop-off. It's like everything else. So they might go back to their 600,000 viewers. And eventually, that main roster talent, they're going to be all hands on deck for Netflix for USA because for SmackDown and Raw, you got 6 hours to fill. And the thing is that Lee Fitting, so the guy that came from ESPN, that was brought on in to help work out things, the Kevin Dunn version of Triple H's new outfit here in this WWE without Vince. So Lee Fitting producing the programming. So far, a sports feel to it, camera changes, things like that. I mean, we're kind of already used to it. I mean, it's been fine, but I don't think there's anything been special about what he's done. In terms of the production they've had backstage, doing backstage promos, or if they're doing any kind of packages, I don't think they threaded the needle at all. Also, they have not taken risks. But this is the thing I think is very important, is that AEW has not taken risks. Not really. And Triple H right now, not taking risks either. You know, I think there's something to be said if Triple H sees somebody that fails. Like, how many people have they really let go on the main roster this year? It's a good question. Of this current year, and who, you know, it's people that left contracts, right? If you look at who they have right now in terms of the stars that have been let go and who is left right now on the main roster. At the moment, just in 2024, it was not as many as you could think, right? But let's put it like this. Amari Miller from NXT, Jinder Mahal. Well, I think it was just the contract had just expired and just let him go. Von Wagner, Xia Li, Zion Quinn, Cameron Grimes. If I'm correct, they could be some of them that were either asked for releases or their contracts were not extended, not continued. They were not re-signed. Guru Raj for NXT, Bobby Lashley, Tamina Snuka, they're both out, MVP, and Becky Lynch. But there's just people that at this list that were just contracts that lapsed and were let go. But have we heard anything at all from Triple H or the folks there of people that have gotten fired because they're just not performing well? I don't see that. Because, yeah, when Vince McMahon would go and clean house, he would clean house of stars. And, we might be a little bit upset with certain stars that would go and be let go. But the truth is, and a lot of people that left, that was just normal. If I look at past years before that, I'm asking Jim and I to tell me about that. And if I ask for 2022 and 2023, you had releases in 2022, and there were a lot. So it was, again, it just looked at the amount that we had. Rounds of releases that would go on in January, in April, right after WrestleMania. NXT UK Town in June, where it was released in June of 2022. More releases would be in August. And then you had another round in September and another round of November. Well, you had Mandy Rose who was let go. And that was the whole deal with the OnlyFans stuff, or the OnlyFans type stuff. In 2023, very few, because you had NXT Level Up announcer Sudu Shah that was released. Saraya that departed. You had 2 stars that requested releases in Jagger Reed and Rip Fowler. Aaliyah James was released. And then in the UFC WWE merger, Mustafa Ali, Emma, Dolph Ziggler, Rick Boogs, Shelton Benjamin, and many more. 20 to 25. So they haven't really done any other housekeeping since the merger. Nothing. 1 year later. So Triple H, he is playing no risk right now. And it's paying all, you can see it right now. And all you're doing is you're capitulating to the fans that are happy. Oh, look, you're keeping all our stars here, even the ones that really don't matter because they don't, nobody else is watching, but at least you keep my favorites, right? And that's it. So you got a loyal fandom that's watching the programming. Now, when it comes to, if you have just on the ratings alone for live programming, you have the audience that's watching, okay, 1.5 million on Raw, 1.5, 1.4, 1.3 million over on SmackDown, 600, 700,000 on CW for NXT. And they're paying not too much of a premium to watch the pay-per-views. And that's it. But we know that this audience, they're going to be able to go and stick with them. And they think they can just continue to go and work off of this. And they're going to be able to get whatever they want. And that the audience is going to be happy to go ahead and continue to see the same stuff they're seeing right now. So for Bad Blood, you're getting the same formula over and over. So coming for Bad Blood coming this weekend, 5 matches in the card that'll be long. Women's World Title, Dominic Mysterio hanging above the ring in a shark cage. Rhea Ripley will probably retain the Women's World Title on Saturday night. You have CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in Hell in a Cell. I don't really care who wins this match. I'm guessing it's going to be CM Punk. Nia Jax versus Bayley in a women's world title match, a women's championship match. I'm guessing Bayley will probably win it back. But then, I mean, they could go ahead and make it a point where Bayley wins it and Tiffany Stratton comes in and cashes in on Bayley, which they could do that. I don't think it makes much of a difference for them anyway. But if you want to go ahead and let Tiffany Stratton go ahead and become champion now going forward, that wouldn't be a bad thing. So I can see something like that happen. I'm going to go and just say it'll probably happen. That we'll get to Nia Jackson Bailey coming up, and that Bailey will win it, but then she will get screwed because Tiffany Stratton will take back the belt. She'll take the belt and she'll cash in, and she'll become champion. Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair are hosts. Now they're going to put them wrestling. And we're going to have them wrestling. They're going to be wrestling on NXT. I don't know why. And you got Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. And so the whole thing is they're really just kind of focusing on the fact that you got Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. They're not friends, but they're allies with a common goal to take down the bloodline. Because unfortunately, the bloodline that Roman Reigns has is no longer available for him to go ahead and regroup and go after. So that's what they got to go and do with that. I mean, again, we've seen these kind of matches over and over. Some kind of variation. Like, we're not getting anything especially different. We're getting a couple of gimmick matches this time around. But we already saw Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley multiple times. We've already seen CM Punk and Drew McIntyre multiple times. I mean, it doesn't matter. Nia Jackson Bailey, we're just getting back to this again. It's just a rematch. But it's safe. It's safe and they're going to do. That's what they want to go and take care of. They don't really want to go ahead and ruffle feathers or really do anything that's going to go ahead and it's going to shake up the apple cart. There's a cliche for you. Still don't know where that came from, but anyways. But how long are they think, especially when it comes to Netflix, they're going to have to make changes for the Netflix era. 90 days out. Survivor Series, they're going to bring some teams together, build off of that. They'll have the War Games. That's enough of a gimmick for them. Saturday night's main event, they can go a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of revelry for that. So they're going to be able to go ahead and kind of like skate along and go on autopilot up until Netflix, January 6th. It's not exactly 90 days from now, but it's close enough. It's about 97, 98. But at the moment, Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Again, they're working with each other off together. Another match we're going to have. So, I'll take Damian Priest to beat Finn Balor. That's it. But other than that, playing it safe does not work for all these wrestling companies at all. I'm glad they're all finding broadcast deals and they're finding a way to go and continue to sustain and go forward. Wonderful. They're all going to make money. Great. I think for AEW's part as well, they still are trying to work off of who they have. It's interesting that they had a showcase of talent since the beginning of Dynamite that were focused tonight on the program. When you see Private Party making their way back, and now they're going to go after the Young Bucks. When you see Dr. Britt Baker facing off in a match. Now, as we know, with Adam Page no longer dealing with Shane Strickland or Swerve Strickland, he now goes after the Bang Bang Gang. And now Jay White has come back, so you're not going to get that feud to stir up with for a while. Chris Jericho and Mark Briscoe are going to take on each other, so the Ring of Honor World title will be put up for grabs at AEW Wrestle Dream, and Jericho will go ahead and challenge. Hook talks about the fact that his dad, Taz, got attacked by a mystery assailant, and now Hook has somebody to go after. Christian Cage is still threatening and dangling over his contract on Bryan Danielson. Willow Nightingale now is dealing with Mariah May. And we see MVP is starting to work ways, and there are going to be some new people that can be brought into the mix for MVP, however that's going to be. Already talking with Prince Nana and confronting him. And then he goes ahead and talks also to Mercedes Moné. But we also get Shelton Benjamin. And it looks like we're going to get a very subtle reveal. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're going to get an eventual reveal of a new Hurt Business. Or a new, whatever you want to call it. A new faction that MVP has, which will include Bobby Lashley, who will be able to be coming in now after not even being, given much to do on the way after we're going to Street Profits for the last year or so. So there's something to be said about also where Triple H, his priorities stand. He has those that are loyal to the NXT Black and White that he wants to go and work with. There's not much anybody else. So they're going to focus more on those folks. But Triple H also knows there's like stars that he's also worked with that he also has to go and consider, and he has to go and be working with, and he wants to be able to make sure that he's doing good by them. So like Roman Reigns is extremely important, a main event star, one of the top stars there. So it's important for him. Important when it comes to Cody Rhodes and what he means to the product, and Randy Orton, who he worked with a bunch of times. But then you kind of drop off from there. Like everybody else that's being put of importance are stars that he already worked with from NXT, going back a decade with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Like there's something you could be saying about like some of the stars that are still there that he doesn't really work with too well, with Miz or with R-Truth and how he's utilizing them, or how he utilizes Braun Strowman, I would say, or how he would use, like if there were people that came to the NXT gamut, then those people he's going to care about. That's what he wants to go and care about. So his loyalty is to them. Especially also the folks at NXT UK. Like you understand by association who Triple H chooses to go ahead and book and who he chooses to position because of who was in NXT. And for whatever reason, he feels like he needs to go ahead and just, change altogether. Okay. It's his choice. But I will say this also in closing tonight, that AEW, you might not think this, and I'm sure some of you that are going to hear me say this, you're going to hate me for saying this. But believe it or not, AEW should see that WWE is putting themselves in a position of weakness. They're vulnerable. And that the way things are going right now, it's going to be different because of the fact that when John Cena comes back, Logan Paul comes back, when you got Roman Reigns, you get The Rock, that WrestleMania vibe is going to start coming back up. When Netflix comes in, all hands on deck, and you're going to probably see a few other part-timers that are going to be taking some places of other stars somewhere in the mix on the Netflix show. So it might be something where the Netflix show is going to be positioned in a different way than it has been for the sake of Netflix, and that USA is going to get something else. A little more established. A little more familiar of what we've always been watching. But what Triple H is trying to go and do, he's going to have to go ahead and placate to Netflix because he has to go and make enough reason for people to go ahead and go to that show watching it live on Netflix and think they're going to be able to find something that's outside of that. But AEW right now, they're trying to build their pillars, keep working on it, but they got to also take risks for themselves and really push some of their stars out of their comfort zone. Like something's going to have to happen there to go and build that up. Because the thing is, I think with the resources, the wherewithal that Tony Khan has right now at his disposal, if he wants to, he can definitely go head to head on getting mainstream crossover appeal that WWE is not getting. And I think that they have room to grow and room to thrive even more. I really believe that. But for AEW, they got to go ahead and figure it out. They got to take risks like everybody else. I don't know what you're going to do to try to be able to get that happening, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, this weekend, Bad Blood, we'll be doing a post show for that right here, kingofpodcasts.com. Make sure to go look for that. And anyway, come back this weekend, enjoy Bad Blood, and come back for another Wrestling Whisperer podcast because wrestling needs us.